Okay, go ahead, Emily.
Here we go. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Washburn. We are so excited that you're here. Apologies that we are not in person in the auditorium for tonight. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm Emily Palmer, proud principal here at Washburn in my third year at Washburn this year. And tonight is a chance for us to answer some questions, share some information, and try our darndest to give you a good sense of Washburn, even though we're in a virtual mode. So we've got some of our teachers and staff here with us tonight. And this first session, the first hour, is going to focus on English, math, social studies, science, world language, and any questions you have just straight to administration. And then you'll have options in the second hour to check out a bunch of different electives of your choice. So you can attend 4 different sessions. And there's also a Q&A with our parent group and parent liaison during the second session as well. So I know we got some questions prior to this from people that were on the website earlier, which is awesome. And so I am going to hand over to Michelle Turpning, one of our assistant principals, who's going to be our moderator, because she has developed good WebEx moderation skills over the last 9 months of COVID, and will help us get your questions answered. And the main thing I want to say is whatever question isn't answered by the end of this evening, please reach out, email or call any of the administrators or our parent liaison, and we are happy to keep answering questions. So thank you again for being here. We're thrilled that you're here, and we look forward to sharing Washburn with you tonight.
All right, and I'll go over just a few protocol issues as we go through. I have a few people asking how we unmute video. For the purposes of this activity, we're going to ask you to place all of your questions in the Q&A section, and we will answer your questions. So there is no need to unmute your video or speak verbally. We're gonna be able to capture everything in the Q&A. So if you can put your question there, we'll see it. And then, like Dr. Palmer said, anything we don't get to, we'll certainly address, and we can stay on it later as well. Some questions may be more pertinent to your individual student, and sometimes we'll answer that individually instead of in the whole group. So we'll work through that. If you can't hear us, it's possible that your audio isn't turned on. And so I think others can hear us right now. It's possible that it's a setting issue. Sometimes you can log out and log back in, and that may work. So for the first part of the session, I'm going to have Mr. Gulliford introduce himself, and then I'm going to ask a few math questions that came in early. So Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Michelle, can I interrupt for just a quick second? If you are having tech problems, we do have a contact on our website. On the main page, you'll see it in red. It's an email for John McCreary or a phone number, and sometimes he can help troubleshoot if you are having some tech issues with logging onto WebEx. So please do look for that resource. We hope that'll be helpful to you.
Good evening. I'm Mike Gulliford, math teacher at Washburn, and I've been teaching at Washburn, I think, for 11 years.
So Mike, a common question that comes through frequently is how, for students who come in next year, how do they know what math to choose if they're in various levels? How is that decided, and what should they be choosing as they come into Washburn?
So there's a couple good pieces of information, I guess, for this. Talking to your teacher at your middle school should be able to help ensure that you're kind of taking the right math class. The guidance counselor there as well. As a parent, if your child is taking the full year right now of intermediate algebra, so that includes a full year of quadratics, and so it's the full year. You can that would be the best way to ask your teacher, am I taking the full year of intermediate algebra? And they should be able to easily answer yes or no to that. If the answer is yes, you would come in at geometry. and that's where you would start. For some kids, if that answer is no, if the teacher says no, you're taking more of the linear portion of algebra, so we're not really getting into exponents, we're not getting into quadratics, then you would come into Washburn at intermediate algebra. So you would take a full year of that way. And then the other answer for that, it's if you're a child that's been kind of telescoped, as some schools use that terminology, or double accelerated is another common way. So in 7th grade, you took intermediate algebra. In 8th grade, you took a year of geometry. Then you would be coming into Washburn at advanced algebra. So that also is something that should be pretty easily answered by just asking, what exactly have you taken?
And it sounds like regardless of where you're coming in to math levels as a 9th grader, there are a variety of different options for students, correct?
As we progress, or could you answer one more time?
So if a student were to come in at intermediate algebra or geometry, they have a 4-year path of classes to be able to take.
Yes. So absolutely. So I'm assuming that course people are viewing the video online. Is that right, Michelle? Or there's a flow chart that I think is most important that I would encourage parents to look at. And then if you have a question about that flow chart, it's something that can easily be answered. So students coming in at 9th graders at intermediate algebra, by the time they have a senior, there's a plethora of options, including advanced academics, that they can choose from. Same thing coming in at geometry, and same thing coming at advanced algebra. So there's a lot of different courses to kind of meet the kind of needs and goals of where you're at.
Great. And here's another question that comes in pretty frequently. Options do students have if they struggle in math, in terms of like extra help after school, or getting help in some of those math classes as a 9th grader?
Well, some of the math classes that we have, especially in 9th grade, would be our kind of collab classes. And so there's another teacher in the classroom as well. And so that provides kind of two adults in the classroom, where that other person can kind of help a lot of floating around and getting to some individuals and being able to answer questions and making sure people can, follow along, or, sometimes if people are struggling, they need some immediate assistance there. And so that's kind of the model there, where someone can try to really help mitigate that and help to make sure that maybe questions are getting answered so things don't snowball. There's after school that, most teachers they have days that they're available to be able to answer questions. And gosh, it seems like so long ago that we've been in school, but we've had after school, we've had help in the media center, where we've had people available to work with kids on homework or other things that they have questions on that way. So there's and then there's always individual things. So we've also had some like kids in some advanced courses that were looking for some like service hours, so to speak. And so they made themselves available to help and provide a service to kids that might need some extra help in math that way.
Hey, Michelle, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to let folks know, I'm not sure why I'm not able to answer questions in the Q&A right now. But I will be staying on this call at the end of the hour. So if you have questions that are specific just to your student or yourself, we can definitely get those answered. So don't worry if you aren't getting answers right now this minute in the Q&A. So thank you.
And in some cases, I'm answering them privately as well. So I'm trying to do both of those things. Average math size classes, Mike, for 9th grade.
Well, I think in 9th grade with the intermediate algebra, we've tried to keep those a little bit smaller. So I would say like the average class size there is maybe like 25. And so, plus, a few kids there. So the goal or intent there is that, some of those kids might need some extra help. That's going back to what the question was before about how can we help make sure that kids are getting the most out of class there that way. So average class size probably be somewhere in that area there. Geometry, they might be a little bit bigger, so upper 20s and 30s, like low 30s, like 28, 30, somewhere like that. And then, advanced algebra, those might be a little bit bigger. So I teach that with ninth graders. So I 30, anywhere from, 32 to 36 kids in there. And so we try to manage that by making sure that the like some of the like the intermediate algebra is getting maybe a little bit smaller class size, whereas advanced algebra, some of those kids in math comes really, really easy. We can handle having a little bit more kids in the classroom that way.
Great, thank you. And then to possibly some math projects, there's a question in the chat. What are some examples of math projects you've done? Did you speak to math projects when you were?
I didn't speak to math projects. I mean, I'm not so if they can follow up with that, like I can speak.
We'll come back to that one if I see some follow up. I'm sorry. So we're gonna move on to another question. I'm gonna have Herb, who's one of our school counselors, unmute for this question. Speaking to how many classes per semester a student in ninth grade gets to take.
Well, typically, we're on a 6-period day, and so we know that students are going to be taking the four core classes: English, Math, Science, and Social Studies, and those are full year classes. If they decide to take a world language, that's 5 of your 6 classes. Then 5 of your 6 class periods are full year. So then it really depends on what that what that 6th class is. If it's a year-long class, or they decide to take 2 semester-long electives. It also, if the student doesn't take a world language, they could choose 2 semester-long electives as well. So we know the 4 core are full year, and then there'll be anywhere from 2 to 4 other classes, depending on what the student selects. There has been in the past also the option of a 7-period day. So if a student wanted to come for 0 hour, and this year we were able to offer fitness and health. So those are an additional 2 electives a student could choose for their schedule.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder, if you're here, try and put your question. It's easier for me to follow along if I can see them in the Q&A section. I'm going to call on Ross Johnson, who's a member of our social studies department, to introduce yourself, and I will give you the next.
Yes, my name is Ross Johnson. I am a first-year 9th grade human geography and ethnic studies teacher. And prior to that, I have been primarily teaching U.S. history for sophomores, and I've been at Washburn for 5 years.
And we have a social studies rep. Jason, do you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Jason Marzenti. I teach geography, AP, human geography at Washburn, and I've been teaching. This is my 6th year at Washburn.
Great, and I'll let one of you two decide to take the first question, and it's, what is the biggest difference between AP human geography and standard human geography here at Washburn?
I think Jason might be better to answer that.
Sure, yes. Geography and standard human geography use the same textbook, but AP is teaching students to take an exam at the end of the year, college credit. So they're very similar courses. There will be a little bit more homework and taking of notes in the AP courses, but you are still going to learn the same great human geography material, cultures, and development throughout the world.
Thank you. How would you best advise students and families to make a decision between the two courses?
I would err on the side of trying AP if your schedule is really jam-packed and you're a busy person and you don't think that you really like geography or can keep up with the AP because you're in football, you have extra language classes, you're trying out for the school play. I would advise balance. Of course, at some point in time, somebody becomes overwhelmed, but if your schedule allows, I would suggest trying AP.
Could I add to that a little bit? I've always, when students have ever questioned whether they should take an AP course, I'm always one of those that suggests that go for it, because especially in ninth grade, if there's ever a chance to dip your foot in the water and see if you're cut out for it, better to do that early on. And if you find that that curriculum is not overwhelming and you're able to prosper in that, you've already set yourself on a pathway to be much more successful throughout your high school career. As opposed to procrastination, you kind of begin to get in the habit of how much time do I need to devote to my classes and things like that. And so when there's the opportunity to experiment and see if AP is in your wheelhouse, I think early on is always better than to push it off and then it just might not come to fruition.
Okay, and then there's a question in the chat for either one of you. Can you tell me about your approach to anti-racist curriculum and instruction? And then how does that fit in with the new ethnic studies requirement?
I'm implementing the new ethnic studies requirement in my geography classes now this semester, and I consider myself an anti-racist educator. I want all of my students to succeed, and I want them to know the truth about the social injustice in the world, because I believe that this generation will be the generation that helps us to overcome that.
I would echo what Jason has said, and I would also say that I feel as a department, we have a very thoughtful and progressive group of teachers who are all keeping the topic of anti-racism top of mind and recognizing the particular opportunity we have living where we do in kind of the epicenter of a lot of the anti-racism situations going on right now with the murder of George Floyd, and how we can approach that and how we can use an unfortunate, tragic circumstance to encourage our kids to take an active role in anti-racism.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn it over quickly. I'm going to ask Herb to speak again to kind of a scheduling issue. So the question in the chat is, can you speak more high level about how to determine a schedule? So what are the required classes generally for ninth grade, the max classes?
So I think from what it sounds like you're talking about requirements, ninth grade requirements.
Yeah, yep, what a typical ninth grade schedule might look like.
Okay, sure. So if we assume a 6-period day and not a 7th period, then students can have a full year of English 9, a full year of human geography or AP human geography, and a semester of that would be ethnic studies. A full year of math, and you'll come in, and we talked math earlier. So just know that if your student goes to a Minneapolis school and you are placed at Washburn, that we do get from the middle school math teachers an appropriate placement. So they do help us with placing your student into a math class. And then physical science is the ninth grade science. We don't know yet this year if they're going to be offering the weight. There was an opportunity to waive physical science. And I don't believe that happened this past year because of the pandemic. And so all ninth graders will be placed in physical science unless that assessment is back in place at the end of the year. Many, I don't know the percentage right now, I don't work with ninth graders this year, but many of our students take a world language. So that would be a 5th class. And again, we get information from the world language instructors at the middle schools as to what the appropriate placement will be. And then for a 6th class, it's an elective usually. So sometimes it's fitness, semester of fitness and a semester of health. Otherwise, students will take theater, or they'll take an art class, could be band, could be orchestra. There are a number of different electives that students can choose from. Of course, if they want that 7-period day, they want to move their fitness and health to the morning hours, to the 0 hour, then that opens up something else for the last period of the day.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder to the families who are here, I see your questions, so you don't have to send them more than once. There's kind of an order and a method to how we're doing this, but we definitely will get to your questions either in the broad group or individually. So I'm going to ask Tim Lease to unmute and introduce themselves, and then I will throw you the next question.
Good evening, scientists. So my name is Tim Lease. I am one of the chemistry, and this is first time in 8 years of physical science. So yeah, that's me. This is my 10th year at Washburn.
Perfect. A question that we received beforehand, what are the options for 9th grade science?
So the option for 9th grade science, for the most part, is physical science. So as Herb had mentioned, there was a test that has been done before, and there's the potential of it being done again. It would happen in the late spring. And if a student does well enough on it, then they would, I believe they usually either have them start directly into biology or directly into chemistry. Now, just to put it into perspective, so there were thousands upon, there were several thousand students that took this test. The first year that they gave the test, there were 15 students throughout the entire district that actually were able to move on to the next thing. So it is a very, very rigorous test because doing well enough says that you understand the material that is presented in the physical science curriculum.
Can you speak to the content that's covered in physical science and how it does prepare students for the subjects after it?
Absolutely. So physical science is sort of like the variety pack of science. So we have a half a year of physics, we have a half a year of chemistry, and then we have, depending on time constraints and such, we have some earth science and some space science.
Great, thank you for that information. I'm now going to ask our English department to unmute. So I'll ask Andy first and then Molly.
11th grade English at Washburn. I believe this is my 9th year.
Hi, good evening. My name's Molly Koppel. This year I'm teaching 11th and 12th grade English, but I've taught 9th grade English for about 5 years at Washburn. I think I'm on year 10. Yeah.
So Molly, what can students do to get ready for English 9?
Yeah, so a lot of English 9 is centered around student-led conversation and reading. So each quarter there's 2 texts. One of them students get to choose from a list of about 10 text options, and the other one is class text. So a lot of reading is helpful, or feeling comfortable reading and talking about what you're reading. We also have a lot of podcasts and current events, but I think the more comfortable students feel having discussions about what they're reading and what they're watching is helpful. So if you can do that at home, watch something together, listen to something together, read something together, and then start talking about your ideas and opinions and supporting that with evidence in what you're viewing. I think a lot of ninth grade is centered around being an active listener and participating in discussion.
Great. And then Andy, a question for you. Is there summer reading for incoming ninth graders that they can do or that they should be doing? And when does that come out?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, if history has taught us anything, the summer reading list should show up on the Washburn webpage stream around the end of May, early June of next year. And there's usually, let's say, novels on the list. And it's recommended that incoming students read at least one of those. But obviously, they're always encouraged to read multiple novels, or I guess nonfiction as well, short story collections, drama, poetry outside of that list as well. But yeah, the list that's published towards the end of May is definitely a great place to start.
Great. And so there's a question in here around what is summer reading and some of the novels. And it sounds like there's a list that will get published toward the end of the year, correct, about which novels?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know. They don't really fluctuate, I want to say, but I also don't know them off the top of my head, unless Molly does for incoming ninth graders, that is. I think very, very expert web surfers can maybe find older lists like buried at the bottom of the Washburn webpage if they want to maybe hedge on books being repeated for the incoming school year. But yeah, what those texts are specifically, I do not know.
Okay.
Do you know them?
And we'll continue.
Oh.
No, go ahead. And we'll continue to, as questions come up, we'll go back to other people. I'm going to turn it over to world language and have Amy introduce herself, and then Katie.
Hello, my name is Amy Kafkas, and I teach French 1. I've been at Washburn for, this is my 5th year, and primarily ninth graders are the students that are in level 1. So if you're thinking of taking French for next year and you're coming in without any prior experience, I will be your French teacher. So nice to meet everyone.
And hi, my name is Katie Karakas. I am a Spanish teacher at Washburn. And this year I teach Spanish 1 and IB SL year 2, which is like a Spanish 5 or so. And this is my 10th year at Washburn.
Great. And Katie, I'm going to ask you the first question, and it's twofold. So the first part of it is, how do I know which level of a language my student should sign up for if they've had some language classes in middle school? And then the second one is, do teachers at Washburn love their job, and how do they feel about principals and administrators?
That's great, because I actually saw that question. I was like, oh, I want to answer that one. Yeah, I think teachers at Washburn love their jobs. I think we're a very dedicated, loving group of people that shows up every day. And I personally feel very supported by my administration. You know, I think they've been great, especially through this pandemic, kind of giving us the freedom to try things out and everything. I think it's been great. Sorry, that was question number 2. Question number 1, the question number 1 was, how do they know what level to go into? Okay, so there's kind of a couple of different answers for that. The main answer is that if you're in a middle school, if you're in a language class in middle school, all those middle school teachers will give the kids an assessment sometime in like February or March, and then we'll give a recommendation for what level the student should go into. So if you're at Barton or Field, you'll either have Prof. Mitch or, Belden, give an assessment, and then we get those recommendations, and then you're recommended to just sign up for that level. And we always have some changes, at the beginning of the year. Maybe we say like, oh, you actually could be in a level that's higher, or maybe you're like just overwhelmed and you decide to go down a level. That's fine too. If you're not in a world language class right now, but you have had language before, the best bet is probably just to reach out to one of the teachers, just to kind of see, because everybody's situation is different. We have some kids who go like through immersion through 5th grade and for Spanish, and then they don't have anything for 6th, 7th, and 8th, or they take a different language and they want to come back. Or there's a lot of, or maybe you took it in 7th grade, but you didn't take it in 8th grade. There's just a lot of different situations, and middle schools have different, different programs. So we can answer those questions more one-on-one.
Great. And Amy, I will give you this question. Is world language a graduation requirement? And then in addition to that, does Washburn offer 4 years of Arabic?
Okay. So let's see. Let's tackle Arabic first. I believe that we do offer 4 years of Arabic. Our Arabic teacher couldn't be here tonight, but we do have full 4 years. If you're coming in with higher levels of Arabic because you've had it in the past, you can start beyond level 1, and it does go up. As far as language being a requirement, was that a question asking, is it a requirement in the entire district?
For graduation.
Yeah, I guess I can't speak to the entire district. I'm not 100% sure on that one. And maybe Katie, if you know, you can jump in. But I would say, even if the district as a whole does not require it, if you are thinking of going on to college, you definitely want to have colleges. We say 2, but really colleges like to see 3 or more years of a language on your transcript. And if you're thinking, well, I'm not college bound, do I have to take language? Well, I think you should take language. It really does. It broadens our horizons. It gives us different perspectives. And in the world we're living in today, we need all the different input that we can possibly get to kind of help us see different points of view, different ways of living. So those are just some thoughts that I have on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's considered an elective credit throughout the district. It's not required, but you're required to take a certain amount of elective credits. It's a good one to take, and most kids do take language. And I did see there is a question, the other languages. We have Spanish, French, Arabic, and sign language. And also Spanish for Spanish speakers, if you speak Spanish at home as well. No Japanese,
Thank
sorry.
you. I appreciate that you can watch the Q&A, so thank you for that. We did have a few questions. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to invite Aaron to come on and introduce himself, and I'm going to give you a question.
Start my video. Hi, my name is Aaron Percy. I'm our Advanced Academics Coordinator here at Washburn, and I have been in this role. This is my 4th year in this role and my 24th year at Washburn. I was in our social studies department for the first 20 years while I was here.
So can you speak to the IB program? And the question is how you apply. So maybe the opportunities for access into the program and what that looks like.
Yeah, so our IB program is, we have a diploma program, which is an 11th and 12th grade kind of 2-year program that anyone is welcome in the building to either kind of do a la carte and take individual IB courses, or try to attain the IB diploma, which is more of a kind of all-encompassing program that goes through a group of 6 different courses that you would take, and you have exams and things of that nature. But there is no application process specifically. It's really open to everyone in the building. We encourage all of our students to take IB courses as they move into 11th to 12th grade. So as far as the process goes, it's something where, if you have questions, you can sure reach out to me at any time. A big part of my job is answering a lot of the kind of the individual questions about our IB program or our AP courses, things like that. But as far as entrance or applications, we don't really have any specific requirements per se.
Great, thank you. And then, so we're going to go back to kind of the Q&A. We've concluded the majority of the specific questions, so I'm going to go back and just kind of cover some of the general ones. When I think it makes sense, I'll call on someone. Otherwise, I think it's okay that people just jump in. Maybe if somebody can speak to kind of elaborate on what Katie said of do teachers love their jobs, or what makes Washburn awesome? Maybe somebody that hasn't spoken yet can enter the space.
Well, so Mike Gulliford again, math. I don't know. Like it's if you are ever, it's unfortunate in a way that you can't. I think people coming away from this event in the past, the feedback has always been, "Wow, that was really awesome." Like the feedback was that it was a super great vibe just at the eighth grade open house here, and it was informative from the teachers, and people leave feeling excited or passionate about Washburn, and so I think that's infectious personally. So like people like the the excitement or passion that's shown from the teachers or the administration or the building itself. um, the feedback I've gotten over the years is that the parents and the students leave this night thinking, wow, this is a great place, I can't wait to go there. And so then the vibe, I'm not involved in tours, but Eric is. I think we still did tours, right? And I think that the people walking around, I can see they're interested and excited. So I just think that speaks to our culture in the building. Like I think kids are engaged, and it's a good vibe in our. We have a good, arts program. We have a good athletics. So there's something for kids to get excited about. So I mean, I have a lot of pride in the school itself. Like I think we're a super top school, and I like coming to that every single day. Like so I just think it's a super exciting place to be. You have a great 4 years, and it will prepare you for wherever you're headed next.
Thank you. I appreciate
This,
that perspective. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is the best job I ever had. This is a great community. I appreciate the school. It's very well ran. I appreciate the administration. My coworkers are first rate. I am such a better teacher for being on a team with the rest of the Washburn teachers. The parents are excellent. They support the students, and the students are hardworking and they want to learn. And that just makes an awesome community and a great place to send your kid to learn.
Thank you. Aaron, I'm going to come back to you for a couple additional questions that came through in the chat. A question speaking specifically to the benefits of IB versus AP, and then a question, just the differences in benefits, and then a question around what if your middle schooler has part of the IB program? What does it look like to wait until 11th grade as we don't have the MYP program?
Sure. So IB and AP are two kind of external standard programs that we have, and they both offer a lot of real positive and solid kind of features, I would say. I think the way we have kind of set up and tried to blend our AP and our IB courses here at Washburn, we have 7 AP courses right now, and the majority of them are offered in your 9th and 10th grade years. And so we kind of use our AP almost as a building block as we move into AP in 11th and 12th, or excuse me, IB in 11th and 12th grade. The focus as far as kind of the two big differences, I would say, AP is a very content driven curriculum that is a very kind of uh, and when I say surface level, I don't mean it in a negative way, but like a U.S. history course will cover a really broad span of time, and they will touch on many different pieces within that. Whereas an IB history course will kind of dive deep into 3 to 4 topics and spend a long time looking at a lot of different perspectives in any one area. Um, Neither better or worse. I think very kind of different approaches as to how to learn. But I think they both have a lot of really positive aspects. And the second question was the MYP question. One of the things that the nice thing about how we've set up our AP program is that you don't necessarily have, there aren't things that you'll miss with MYP moving into our DP program. They don't have, it isn't a pathway that like you have to be all the way through MYP to take DP. It's those, the MYP is flexible in how it approaches and where it fits in, so to speak. Whereas the DP is a much more of a content and curriculum based program than MYP is. So it won't have any negative impact if you jump in as a 9th and 10th grader and then take an IB class as an 11th grader. No.
And several of our students do both, right? Or can take classes concurrently. So like speaking to our sciences,
Totally. Yep.
they're pretty, yeah.
Flexible. Yep.
Can you go into detail about the DP and MYP acronyms?
Yes, DP is our diploma program and MYP is middle years program. And so IB has they have a primary years program for younger ages, an MYP program kind of for that middle school range up through 10th grade. And then the DP program and CP programs are kind of their two end of school programs that will gain you college credit in those two avenues.
Okay, thank you. And now I'm going to call on Dr. Palmer to speak to a question around the CDD. And so the specific question is, how might Washburn change given the CDD, and what will that look like for next year and beyond?
Yeah, good question. We're still figuring that out. I did do an overview of the boundary changes that is a separate link on the website. So if you click into all of our open house materials and find the one that says CDD, it shows the boundary changes specifically. We did get a little smaller. The district has stated an intention of making all the high schools roughly the same size. So the three big high schools right now, we're the second largest. So Southwest, South, and Washburn. There is an intentionality of making us a little smaller. I am anticipating, I was given the number 367 yesterday for our incoming freshman class. This year was closer to 450. So we are anticipating having fewer students coming in 9th grade. And then over the course of 4 years, that would take us down to closer to 1,500 rather than right now we're at 1680 or something closer to 1,700. It remains to be seen whether that really does play out over the years though, right? Because the question becomes, how strict is the district going to be? How intentional is that going to be over some years? So we don't know the answer to that right now. We do know that there is going to still be an appeals process. So particularly if you are in our boundary now and you got scooted out of it for next year, certainly you can apply to Washburn, and it will just depend on what they determine that capacity to be. One big question, there's a lot of misinformation about the CTE program out there. There will be no CTE changes before 2023. And even happening in 2023 assumes a lot of other things will happen between now and then that I don't know that they will. So nothing is changing in CTE for at least the next 2 years. And we do expect to keep some of our programming beyond that as well. Did I cover the whole question or was there another part to it?
You did. Thank
Okay.
you. And I'm gonna keep you on and just answer to give you another question. And I'll read it exactly. I have students of color. What is Washburn doing specifically to close the education gap for students of color and increase equity for minority students?
Good question.
And then what percentage of our staff are BIPOC?
Yeah, I was just noticing we've got a lot of white folks here tonight. I do not know the percentage off the top of my head. We have probably 10 or 12 teachers who are of color, and that's out of a much larger number. We certainly do try hard to recruit folks of color in the faculty. But the bigger question is, what does equity look like? And the biggest answer to that is revision of instructional strategies. So it's how do we approach teaching in the classroom to ensure that we are not making kids fit our mold, but rather teaching to our kids. And I think, we've been on a journey of transformation and it's accelerating in recent years, and that's a good thing. I can tell you this is a faculty that is very, very receptive and very interested in how does that look like to change instructional strategies. For example, we've been working for the last couple years on differentiation, which means we don't just have one lesson for 30 kids and expect it to be the same for everybody. When we plan a lesson, it includes the base. It also includes extension. It also includes supports, because some kids need extension, something more because they're speedier, and some kids need supports, something different to be able to access the same information. And so the idea is that we take the time to plan that. Yes, it is 3 times as much work, but the reality is it's what works for kids. And so that's been a big, something we've been studying and working on, and will continue to be working on. The other thing is engagement. Is rather than putting student engagement on the kid, asking ourselves what instructional strategies increase student engagement. If kids aren't engaged, what can I do differently to draw a child in, rather than, again, putting it on the kid? Oh, well, he didn't try, right? So it's an orientation, but it, again, really comes back to the strategies, literally what strategies am I using in the classroom? So that's been a point of study for us as well. And then beyond that, we have both as a faculty and as some student groups who are working on specific strategies. We had a student group, for example, that just did a panel with all of our advanced academics teachers to talk about experiences, what it's like being a kid of color in advanced classes, some asks, what kids would like to see, to make our advanced courses in particular more welcoming and accessible to kids of color. Another thing that we've been doing so I'm in year 3 at Washburn, and in the time I've been at Washburn, one big thing was to remove prerequisites. And you heard Erin talk about the fact that any kid can take any IB class. So we've removed the barriers. Now, there are exceptions in math and world language where there are things you have to learn before the next thing, and that's in world language, it's just how that works. And in math, it's the state requirements. You have to do this before you get to the others. But beyond that, again, as you heard our social studies department talk about, it's up to kids. You want the challenge, take the challenge. Nobody is going to look at a kid and say, nope, this isn't for you. That's not a thing. And I think it has been a thing in the past. In the past, adults looked at kids like you're an advanced kid and you're not an advanced kid. And that's part of the thinking we've really had to outgrow and move beyond, and to say everyone is an advanced kid. It just depends on what do you like and what do you want and how am I reaching you. I tell the sophomore class and the junior class every year, make sure that you take at least one advanced class, just because to show yourself that you can. Pick your favorite subject and take an advanced class. And we try really hard to have an orientation that advanced work is for everyone, and also to keep our mainstream rigorous as well. So yeah, I could.
No, and it's fair to say, so one of the questions that came in at how are you disrupting historically predictable patterns of who might be receiving support in advanced classes? And I think just what you said is one of those ways that we've done that, by encouraging students to try something different and being available to provide that support if students do need it.
But it's those two things. It's number one, how do I get the student into the class? And number two, how do I support the student in the class? Right? It's both of those things. And I can tell you, I can tell you when I came 3 years ago, the number one thing I heard from parents, from students, from staff was about desegregating the advanced classes, and a concern around that. And that Washburn takes such pride in being a school that is multiracial, multicultural, an interesting student body. And then our classes aren't all reflecting that. And so the student group I've been working with, it actually just formed up this year as an actual club, which really came out of that. And actually some of our white kids, along with some of our kids of color, just saying we're not comfortable as kids. We're not comfortable having some of our classes being really white and some of them not. That's not cool. That's not okay. And so we're, again, coming back to how is the experience for a student in the class, right? How does that look like for a kid? And obviously COVID has just magnified that for us, because when a kid turns their camera off, it's not the same as when they put their head down on the table and I can walk over and chat, So that's put a lot of more orientation on our support staff. And we have fantastic support staff who have been just busy on the phones reaching out during COVID. So, yeah.
So there's another question that came through. What programming and support will occur as 8th graders streamline into 9th grade who have had a rough year with online learning and may have fallen a bit behind? I'm not sure if you want to take that one or if one of the teachers who are kind of facing that right now want to take that one.
Well, I would definitely take it because I don't think we know the answer to that yet at all. At all. We don't have the slightest clue in the world how that's going to look like next fall. But we will figure it out between now and then, and we will have a really good plan by September 7th or 8th or whatever the first day of school is in the fall. Because no question, and it really, that isn't different though than any year where kids come to us with a wide range of experiences that they've had. Kids come from, most of our kids come from Page and Field and Barton, but kids come from a wide range of other schools as well and with different experiences. And so every teacher in the building has that challenge, right, of grabbing everybody where they're at. There is no, we hope that kids have learned X, Y, and Z in middle school, but that doesn't mean they did. So I think it's just going to amplify that challenge. And the other thing is that we'll have communication, particularly with Page, Field, and Barton. We'll have communication with those teachers and know how far they got, and they'll be able to tell us, we didn't get to this unit, or we didn't get to that one, or, we covered this and not that. And so we'll have that by then. We don't have that right now. So I don't think there's any type of good answer to give. The other thing is that we're aware that our kids are suffering. Our kids are Washburn kiddos right now. They're having a horrible time with COVID. It's depressing. And we know that that's true in middle school too. So that's a whole nother layer, right? As we come back into the building together, how does that look like? So we will know when the time comes. We are a great faculty at figuring things out, but we don't know right now.
Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to some of our courses. Katie, I'm going to call on you for this one. There was a question that came through around what classes do we have for students who were in the immersion program? And I know that we have a few folks in the chat. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. For Spanish immersion, we always have a handful of kids that come in through Spanish immersion, and we've kind of changed over the years kind of where we put them, because we aren't an immersion track, but we do want to meet their needs, where they're at. So starting this year, we kind of made a little bit of a change, and we decided to go with it next year as well. So immersion students, they still, I believe, will get, they'll give a writing sample to their 8th grade ELA teacher, I think. We'll have them do a writing sample, which will be sent to us, but not necessarily with a recommendation. And what we are saying is that 9th grade immersion students should sign up. They can either choose Spanish 3 or IB standard level year 1, which is normally one where we haven't had 9th graders in that high of a level. But this year is the first year we decided to do that, and it's actually working out okay. So we decided that we're going to go with that next year as well. So level 3 or SL year 1. In the past, you may have had maybe older siblings or something that have come through, and maybe they were put into 9th grade level 4, which we're actually just gonna not do that next year. We're just gonna say level 3 or SL year 1, depending on your comfort level. If you've gone all the way through 8th grade, I would say SL year 1. And then if you've gone through immersion through 5th grade and then went to a different school, then it really depends on your comfort level. Most kids I think would still be fine for SL year 1. But if you didn't feel comfortable in your Spanish, maybe start with Spanish 3. We can always move you later if we need to. And you still will have 4 years of language if you start in the SL year 1 class. That class is going to be a lot of 10th, 11th, 12th graders. But we still will have 4 years for you. We have two standard level classes and 2 higher level classes, and you would just take them all. So.
Thanks. And there's an additional question that came in, and I bet this is specific for both world languages, math. So I'm going to ask you another follow-up. If you can go into what the SL year 1 is, but then also how do you work with placement for students who are in private schools? It sounds like you have that direct line of communication with our Minneapolis schools, but how do you work with students in other, like Annunciation, for example?
Is that a question for me? Sorry.
Yeah, you can answer it. And then if Mike wants to answer it for math as well, I think that would be helpful afterwards.
So my understanding is Annunciation has Spanish, and they take Spanish several years. And most kids that come out of Annunciation feel pretty comfortable in Spanish too when they come through. Although if they're like a really, really on the ball advanced student, feel like a top student, they could probably try level 3. We've had Annunciation students do well in Spanish 3 as well. But Spanish 2 is a pretty comfortable level where most of the Annunciation students have done pretty well.
Hey,
Great.
before
And then,
oh,
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say it's hard because I don't see everyone, Michelle, but I want to say as a teacher and a parent, like how great a job Ms. Karakis does. Like I love listening to the World Language Department, and that's something that stood out in my mind of like we figure it out, you know. So there's something the placements and everything to like it meets the needs of everyone, which someone asked the question before, that makes me feel proud. Like I feel proud listening to her. I'm just gonna say that of like the courses that we have and how we get people in there. And so it gets figured out. And so it's kind of the same thing. Like I've had a lot of the kids from Annunciation, or I don't know, I've had kids from Annunciation, and it usually during this time, during the open house, we talk, we go through our PowerPoint and we talk about the course and the flow chart. And usually I get those direct questions like, well, I'm in this class here, and then we match that up and figure it out. And so again, I would encourage people that aren't streamlined from the Minneapolis public schools just to know like your private school teacher knows exactly what kind of math you're in, and are you in intermediate algebra now is the next best thing, geometry. I mean, are you a student that's been double up? Are you moving ahead of everyone? You take geometry, then they'd come in higher than that. So it's really just about that communication piece and knowing exactly what you're in. And then communicating back, and the other thing is we always take care of there's some people that have some exceptions, right? It needs that personal talk, either with misinterpreting or a teacher itself, and be like, I'm not sure where we're really at. And then we figure that out, the small percent that needs to have a little bit more conversation.
Aaron, you want to add, and then I need to be cognizant of the time, and we're going to wrap up with Erica.
The first part of that was the IB SL 1 and what that means. And all that means is IB has two different kind of levels of course. They have a standard level course, which is SL, and a higher level course, which is HL. But it really is just a continuation where everyone will begin at an SL level, and then you can move into a higher level. And so when we use IB SL, that's really just our acronym for what those mean. That's all. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to transition to Erica. Please note that there are a few people whose questions we didn't quite answer, but to keep you on the right track to send you off to the breakout rooms, we'll wrap up with Erica, but you certainly are welcome to stay on, and Dr. Palmer and I will stay on and answer some of the questions that we didn't get to.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Erica Levins-England. I do community and family engagement at Washburn, oftentimes known as the parent liaison. It's one of my roles. So I just want to kind of help transition us to close off this part and then transition us into the next part. So the part I wanted to make sure I showed you is on the main page of the website. I want to highlight this where it says review placement timelines. If you click there, this kind of shows you dates. I know that can be important for parents as they're thinking about it and looking at schools. So I wanted to highlight that February 1st is what's considered the first priority application deadline. So to be considered in the first round of placements, you'll want to submit your online application by February 5th. And so that's important. And then there's some other dates that I think are important for families as they're looking to fall. And then the other part I wanted to show you down here on the school placement process, There's a link right here for you to go and submit your online request form. This is where you would say, this is our first choice for high school. It's pretty simple. You just go through this, and I think there's 7 pages, and it's quite quick on information. The other thing I wanted to highlight on the website is if you're not sure if you're assigned to Washburn based on your address, if you click here, see your assigned community school. Right here, I just put in an address, and if you click here, it shows you with the new CDD, this is all the new boundaries. Based on that address I put in, it shows me that Washburn's my community school, and then it shows you what some of the other citywide options are. And then down here, it'll say there's 6 other schools where transportation is not provided, and you click there and it shows you those. And it gets tougher to get placed at schools that are not in your community zone. It sort of depends on space, and they talk about a lottery or a priority system for those. And I can answer a few more questions. I know I did see some in the comments about how likely is it to get into Washburn if it's not your area. And I'll be available in the parent room if you'd like to pop over to there, and I can explain a little bit more about that. So I wanted to make sure you saw that. As you move into the next hour, you'll see here on our main page, right when you go to our main web page, all of our elective options are here. So you're going to choose 4 different rotations based on your interest, your student interest. Feel free to divide and conquer. So you can go to more, you could send 1 parent, 1 guardian somewhere, and then a student can go to a different one. So you'll go to 4 different options should you choose to. There's, I think, 8 or 9 different links here, and we'll rotate about every 10 minutes with a little bit of a 5-minute flex between. And I did just want to point out that if you have any tech needs tonight, you're not getting into a meeting, a link isn't working, please note this here. Also, if you have general questions, feel free to pop into the parent room. That's where I'll be, and I can try to help that. We also have 2 current parents in there that can kind of answer questions from a parent perspective. And then wanted to make sure we highlighted this student panel at 7:30 to 8. That's really intended for students, not for parents. We have current students there who can provide a little bit of information from a student lens. And so we hope this next hour will be informative for you. And we're really glad that you came. And we're going to let people go to those next sessions. I do think our admin team is going to stay on this current call if there's any other questions that you would like to put in the chat for that.
Exactly. So thanks, Erica. And thank you, Michelle, for being our little coordinator of this whole thing. So folks, Michelle and I are going to stay on this link for as long as there are still folks here asking us questions. So at this point, I just want to say thank you. And again, if you jumped on after introductions, I'm Emily Palmer, principal here at Washburn. I'm really excited that you all are here, and just thank you for taking the time. And definitely check out all the links on the website, because our folks put a lot of time into making videos for you since we couldn't be walking around the building together tonight. So have a good rest of the evening in the other sessions, or hanging around here and keep asking questions of Michelle and me. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a quick moment for people to jump off, and then Michelle will keep answering questions as they come. And thank you to our teachers who have been with us as well. Thank you for being here.
Dr. Palmer, one of the questions that we didn't quite get to was how often is violence and behavior issues a problem within the school, and how is that dealt with? And we had a teacher answer a little bit, but if you want to speak to that.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see the answer in the chat. So obviously we don't condone and accept violence, but we do have very angry kiddos sometimes. So we have 4 deans, 1 per grade. And the nice thing about that is that they get to really know their kids and families. And deans do both proactive and reactive work. So we do a lot of work just getting to know what kids' needs are. And then also that reactive work in the moment when something does happen. And how is it dealt with depends on the child and the situation. So obviously we follow the Minneapolis discipline policy, but at the same time, we also really work to know kids and know their needs, and know is going to help. So, and I would say overall, Washburn is a very safe and awesome place, right? I mean, we're full of teenagers, but at the same time, our teenagers tend to do things that help with community and make community flow well, with 1,600 and some kids in the building. And in general, that's why we like doing tours, so that people come and feel the building and see, and I always say, come and stand. What I love in tours more than anything is standing in the hall during passing time. I think that helps you feel Washburn as well as anything. So I'm sorry we can't do that right now, because, it's a good place. It feels good.
So this question just came in and I don't know the answer. If my daughter is signed up for Roosevelt School as a pathway school for immersion and we decide to go to Washburn, which is our neighborhood school, is she guaranteed to be able to attend?
Yes, if you are in the new Washburn attendance area, yes, you have a spot. Mm-hmm.
But it still would have to do the choice process if she got notified that, so if you were notified that you were being assigned as a pathway school, they have to go through the choice process.
Correct. But you live in the attendance area, so you will, but yeah, you do have to put like Erica said. Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers your question, Kara.
We still have 31 people. That's awesome.
Yep. So this is another similar question. I think we answered it. If we already received outreach from Minneapolis in the last week that the student was identified to automatically go to Washburn, there is no need to submit the application.
Correct.
Which is different than in years past.
Which is different than years past, where everyone had to submit something. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So I think we are caught up overall. I think I addressed questions. If you're still here and you have additional questions, feel free to throw them in the question and answer again. It's possible I missed a question or maybe didn't speak to it. So here's one. What percentage of student slots are for students outside of the community school status?
So technically 0, although they created an interesting little formula. And I saw another question about how many, like what percent of Washburn kids live. We actually have either the highest or one of the highest percentages of our own kids attending Washburn as opposed to other Minneapolis schools. So some schools have kids from all over. We have mostly Washburn kiddos. But we do have some kids from outside the city, obviously. What was the second part of it? I apologize.
Just the what percentage of students from outside of community school?
What percentage of spots might be saved? So the way that they calculated it, as I understand it, which was just presented a couple days ago, was that a school has a capacity, and they're sort of determining capacity, like sort of by physical space, where our physical capacity is 1,728, and then they said up to 20% of that could be students from outside the attendance area. However, if you're predicted to fill to more than 80% with kids within your attendance area, then those spots would no longer be there. And so the way the original calculation that they did for Washburn did not show that we're going to have much space. It's still showing 1,600 and some kids for next year. And so there would not be much space for kids from outside. And then question becomes, would there be a prioritization for people who just got boundaried out, right? So have been in our attendance area, live close. Would those get those few spots, or could it be anybody from anywhere? That part isn't clear yet. But we're not expecting, I mean, I definitely would say, go ahead and put in and if this is where you want to be, we want you here. But because it's a new process, it isn't super clear how that's going to go down.
Great. So we're caught up. I don't know if there are any other comments from people. We've got about 12 people still here with us. So.
Okay. Awesome.
Oh, here's one. If you're in 8th grade AVID, are you given a spot for 9th grade AVID, and do you have to complete a form? So yes, you do have to complete an application for AVID. Most of our ninth grade students are accepted for AVID. We have spots generally available, and that choice process happens in April, where students and families will choose their courses. And at that point, when a student indicates that they're interested in AVID, we would send them an online application that they would complete. But it's a pretty straightforward process.
Yeah. And a kid who's in 8th grade AVID, you'd pretty much would qualify for 9th grade, right? Because you already qualified for 8th grade. So yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Good question.
So let's see. What are the subject matters that are strongest at Washburn, and how many kids go on to four-year colleges? I believe our four-year college rate is 70%. I believe it's really close to 70%, with about 20% of students going on to two-year colleges or technical colleges.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's about
all of our subjects. I think all of our matters are strong. I think I think it's fair to say, and I know this person came on a little bit late, but we have really strong teachers, and we have teachers who are committed to being at Washburn, and committed to doing the professional development it takes to make their subject strong. I think we have fantastic teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely the case.
And so for Jed, we recorded this session, so we'll get it posted to the website tomorrow. You have some good questions, and you'll be able to watch this again and see some of the other questions that we covered. So this is all being recorded if you want to get to some of the elective sessions so that you don't miss those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything people are wondering?
Here's one. I'm from Jefferson School, so I'm kind of far away from Washburn, but can I still go to your school?
So if you live in the Tenants area, absolutely. And if you don't live in the Tenants area, but you live by Jefferson, that's not very far away from our attendance areas. So certainly could try. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I think the overall theme is that because this is so new, try to do your application, and we just don't know what's going to happen.
The main thing I can say is if you live south of Lake Street, you're probably in our attendance area. But if you live north, like closer to Jefferson from Lake Street, then you're not in our attendance area, but you could still apply. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think I mentioned this before, but if you go onto our website with all the open house materials, there is a link for the CDD. And in that, it's a little presentation where I go over the new boundaries in detail so you can see exactly what is and isn't our new attendance area.
I think we're all caught up then. I think that's where we're at.
Awesome.
So go ahead and jump into your elective sessions. You can choose 1 out of 8, or feel free to go into the parent session if that's what you'd like to do, or go around to any of the videos that you may have missed.
Right.
We'll kind of start to close this out.
Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Should we just linger?
Mm-hmm.
So, so Mohammed, you have a great question. How do you go to the other sessions? If you go onto our main page of our website, that's where you'll find all of the different sessions that we're hosting from 7 to 8. It sounds like maybe you're a student, so certainly go into the 7:30 session for students. There's a student panel that you can learn and hear about Washburn from other students. So that should be a good session for you, and you can choose other ones as you'd like. Have a good evening.
All right. We've got 9 folks left. How many are staff? Is that all staff, or is there?
I think 3, just me and you, so 7.
Okay. Somebody said I'm having trouble getting into the meeting.
That was that a long time ago? I don't see that one.
So it's in the Q&A just now.
Oh. Sabrina, which one are you struggling to get into? You certainly can go to our tech support one, and John McCurry can help you. He's in that one. With the AVID one.
Hmm.
Let me
Is
check.
it not working or is there nobody there?
Oh, she doesn't have Zoom. You should be able to access Zoom from the website if you use your Chrome browser without having to download it.
Right. You should be able to just click and go in.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm getting a note. I need to. It says it's
Did-
not letting me. I would say then go into John McCurry's tech support and he can help you problem solve to get in there. But it's happening 4 times, so you still should be able to get in there another time.
Do you see where the tech support link is?
She said,
Okay.
I need to check the visual arts room.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop recording and go. It sounds like there's not a staff person there.
Okay. So we're all good? I'm going to hang up.